it's that plays in my mind, that we're working, we're generating our money to survive and have our livelihoods. And yes, to be financially responsible, we need to think about our future. But I don't think that it makes sense to have all of your money siloed into an account that you're going to use at a future time, because you don't know what the future is going to be like. You get hit by a car tomorrow. So many things could happen that change the direction of your life, your partner's life, your kid's life. Anything could happen.
Hi, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Empower and Elevate with yours truly, Marc Thomas. Today, we have a cybersecurity legend in the house, and not just your run-of-the-mill advocate, but a true master of the game. Picture this. He's been hustling since his teenage years and even became an Amazon bestseller during the chaos of 2020 with his groundbreaking book, On Thin Ice, all while donating every penny to a children's hospital. Please welcome the president and CEO of MYDWARE IT Solutions, Darryl Cresswell. Welcome, Darryl.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It is good to see you, my friend. How you been?
Been good. Been keeping busy, enjoying life where I can, and, hustling like always. How things been for you?
Very good, very good. What do we say? As they say, living the dream, right? We get to do this. So, hey, you were talking about, getting out there, doing things. My understanding is recently you got away for a lengthy period of time and got to enjoy life a little bit. And I think it involved a cruise. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, that was nice. That was actually the first time ever doing anything like that ever in my entire life. So we got to get away for a little bit over the Christmas holidays and take the family on a Caribbean cruise. As where we live in Canada, it's cold in the wintertime, and not a fan of the cold, not much into skiing and snowboarding and all of that stuff. So any chance to get away from the cold is always a nice thing. Yeah, we were able to take a Caribbean cruise, visit all the ABC islands, get off and do some excursions and all of that good stuff. It was a great experience, something that we've never done before. It was nice to go and see new places and do that. And then, we had a little bit of an extra vacation after that. I didn't want the trip to just, boat docks, go home, and then it's all over. So we spent a little bit of extra time in Florida and got to enjoy a little bit of the beach and the sun. So other than burning up like a lobster for not wearing sunscreen properly, it was a great time.
Well, I can imagine just like that, I, like you, maybe not as far north as Canada, but I don't necessarily enjoy winters or the cold. So I can definitely appreciate getting away for a nice Caribbean, warm weather, and even Florida, no less, some of that warmth down there and enjoying those beaches. And yes, I'm as white as white gets, and we all know that without proper protection, I would be definitely red like a lobster as well and in pain. So, so you took 2 weeks. Is that my understanding? 2 weeks you got away from your business to enjoy time with your family, the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. I've always kind of been a slave to the business since starting it, very, very young. I started it when I was 13, as you.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And it was always, work, customer calls or emails, doesn't matter what time of the day, time of the night, weekends, holidays, I'm there, I'm responding. And it always took away from my time with family. And I missed a lot of my kids' early time growing up when they were really, really young, just because I was working 18-hour days, longer sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't get to spend time with them on the weekends because I'd have to go and do service work for customers and driving and all of that stuff. So the really, really early years, I spent a lot of time working and didn't really get a chance to really ever go on vacations. If anything, it was like a day trip to Niagara Falls or something like that, but never an actual vacation ever. And so I started doing that. I think it was 2020 was the first time we'd ever gone on vacation in our whole life ever. We've never been able to do that ever. So we went to Dominican Republic for the first time, first ever vacation. But they were always short, like short vacations, because they're always afraid to be away from the business for any length of time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I attend a ton of industry events, and I'm away for those for work all of the time, but never just a personal getaway for any reasonable length of time. And last year I just said it's enough. I've put so many years into this business. I've put so much into making sure that our clients are well taken care of, making sure that the business is well taken care of. And nobody's ever really looking, are we doing anything for ourselves? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we doing anything for ourselves? Or are we always just giving, giving, giving? And that's why I just said, you know what, this year it's time. We're going to take a trip, and we're going to take one where we don't have to rush there and rush home. And so it was really, really nice to be able to have 2 weeks. I didn't send a single email while I was gone. To be able to disconnect from my phone for 2 weeks was liberating. I've
I
literally
bet.
never done that the entire time that I've been in business. Now, if there was an emergency or anything like that, obviously our team would know how to get a hold of me if they needed to. But not having to pick up my phone and look at it was, I've never done that before. And the previous vacation that I took, my phone was in the ocean with me in a waterproof pocket in case something would happen. I was that nervous
Yeah.
to be away. So yeah, it was nice to do that this time for the first time.
Well, congratulations on that. That is truly
Thank you.
amazing to hear. Obviously, you've been grinding away for many, many years, making those sacrifices as something with family and family time. So what did, your family, your children, your wife, what was their opinion of getting away for that much time? What kind of feedback did you get from them? And kind of what was their, I guess, thoughts?
Well, my wife for sure sees a difference, right? Because she too has never gone and done any of these things or been any of these places, never had the means or ability or whatever to do that, even as she was growing up. So for her, it's all brand new. It's a new first time experience, just like it is for the kids. But the kids have always grown up with whatever they need. They've never really had to struggle for simple things like a place to live or food or anything like that. They've always had that. They've always been well taken care of. So for them, it's cool. We're going on a vacation. We're going on a new place. But for us, it's like we waited our whole childhood and adult life to be able to do that for the first time. So it's a fun experience for sure for everybody, and a new experience for everybody. But I think the kids don't really get the gravity of how long it takes to get to a point like this when you're self-employed and when you have so many people depending on you and relying on you to get it, to go away and do something like that. But they had a blast. They enjoyed it. They got to do some like bumper cars and swimming, and my youngest son Ryan was just living up the cruising life, and they had a great time. I would definitely do a cruise again. I regret that it took me as long as it did to go do it because it was fantastic. We had a great time.
That sounds amazing. And I have been fortunate enough to meet your family, meet your wife and your children, your two sons, amazing kids, amazing family. And I'm thrilled that you got to enjoy that time with them and experience those new things. Now you're putting in perspective that your children have never got to experience the hardships, sounds like, going without. They've had everything they've needed growing up. You, on the other hand, my understanding is had a little bit different story of going maybe without, and it allows you to appreciate it a lot more. Can you take me on that journey, enlighten me a little bit on how appreciative you are of that and why?
Well, I mean, when we take a look at my kids, they have two parents that have been in their life their entire time. And so that's why they always have whatever they need. If they need a ride somewhere, they need new clothes, they need, basic things like your dinner cooked. Like they had that. So they don't really have that experience. I grew up without any parents. I didn't have a mom or a father that did any of those things for me ever. And so living off of, government funds that you get as part of being in these, group homes and foster homes, there's nothing there. It's like bare basics, bare everything. There's not a lot there. So even things like going to school where you could get like pizza day lunches and stuff like that are all things that I never had when I was in school, but my kids have always had. So the difference for them is they don't have that really context, and I'm glad they don't. I would never want them to. I wouldn't want anyone's kids to have that type of context. So I can't really have the expectation of them that they're going to see and appreciate things in the same way that I did. My wife did have, her parents were in the picture for her, so her experience is even different than what mine was. But still, if you don't have that experience of growing up really, really poor and not having anything at all, it's really hard to have the same kind of appreciation that when you just have everything that you ever need. So I don't know if I answered your question or
No. You're fine. You're fine. Yes, I mean that does shed some light a little bit of how and why you would appreciate it more than your children. And yes, same with my own. Right, I get it. Going without means going without something that they really don't need anyways, right? Like, but
right.
in your past, in your history, being raised without parents, you said it sounds like foster care, group homes. Wow. I mean, I can't imagine, obviously I had parents growing up, though maybe divorced, right? In separate households and do these things, but I still had, immediate family, and wasn't living in a sense in the system as what you're kind of explaining.
Yeah.
So, you talk about 13 as being the age of going into business. And we also talk about your childhood. 13, you're still a child, teenage, but you're a child, right? So you get into that. Where were you in life that you going from these group homes and foster care in the system to 13, you got into business? What was going on? How did that happen?
I always had some kind of a business hustle of some sort or another since as far back as I can remember. Anything that I could do to make any kind of money. I can remember like having candy stands and selling candy whenever I get access to candy. But as I got older and I started to get into high school, I always, for some surprising reason, I did really well in school. I always did really well in school. I wasn't always the best in every subject. I had subjects that I was really, really great at, and I had subjects that I was terrible at. Mm-hmm. I always had a natural ability to understand technology. I don't know why. It's always come naturally to me. I don't struggle with it. I pick up new concepts when it comes to IT, like just second nature for me. I don't struggle to do it. I just get it. And it's always been that way for me, which is, I guess why I ended up in this field. But I can remember being in the computer classes and being 13, and I was learning how to write software at that time. I was doing kids' homework for money so that they could pass their classes. Like I had hustles like that where I would use it. Literally, I would get that money, and that was the difference between me being able to buy a T-shirt or not. It was always something like that to make side money just to get by. And I did it regularly. So once I started to get 13 and 14 and get some more coding experience behind me, I was starting to do things like write batch files, fix people's computers for them, tutoring. I did a lot of tutoring too, even all the way through post-secondary education. I did a lot of tutoring for side money just to be able to pay the bills and stuff. So it's always been something like that. And I've always been business oriented and finding ways to make money as far back as I can remember, 13 and probably even earlier than that.
Wow. So would you kind of say that in a sense, the side hustles was part of your survival, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you said to make an extra money to buy a shirt or whatever, right? I mean, So, and that survival mechanism, those things you did to survive, obviously pushed you in the direction of the business at the age of 13. And then, in the school, I'm wondering too, you did so well in the school, which, I'm so happy for you, right? In that sense that you did well in school, because I'd imagine someone else in that position might not do so well, right? But you did. And I don't know if that was that maybe a coping mechanism for you or an outlet for you? The school was something that you took pride in or kind of invested in? Just trying to kind of grasp that, right? Like, because I would think that if I was in those shoes, in which I couldn't even imagine being in those shoes, that I don't know that I would care much about anything, right? Like,
it's interesting that you mentioned that. I'm still actually really good friends with one of the caseworkers that was involved with me through the program since I was, I think, 14 or 13 when I met her. We're still close friends. And, when I do talk to her, she goes through her entire case history of the kids that I lived with and grew up with that were in these places. And many of them have taken their lives. A lot of them are in jail. A lot of them are addicted to some sort of anything that prevents them being productive. So I am one of the few, very, very, very few that go through and actually have something on the opposite side of it. It's not commonplace, and it's certainly not of common of anything I ever saw when I was growing up. But to your specific question of, was school an outlet? It certainly was an outlet. School was positive for me because I was there doing things that I liked. Mm-hmm. I took every single computer course that was ever available, anytime and every time. And I had some really good teachers too that would allow me to stay at school late after hours. I didn't have a computer of my own at that time, so staying in the computer lab, I could write code. I could do things that I enjoy, versus being at some of these places where I was living, where it's nothing but negativity, it's violence, it's drugs, it's smoking, it's drinking, it's not a nice, fun place to be. So when I could get away and be at school and actually be in the computer labs and areas doing stuff that I liked, I stayed there until they kicked me out. Like but I had some great teachers. Like sometimes they stayed there 7, 8 o'clock at night and they let me stay there. Like they were way past when they should have gone home and they let me stay there. They stayed there with me. So yeah, it made a big difference for sure.
Wow. That, I tell you, I know that it wasn't an easy story necessarily to live, but, it's an amazing story to hear, right? And especially knowing how you came out of that, right? I know you today and I see your successes, and obviously you were succeeding then, right? And for whatever reason, even was staying late at school and doing those things to get away from something, you turned that into something positive. And I know it wasn't an easy road for you to travel. And I'm sure it was full of nothing but struggles, but you overcame those, and you're an amazing individual. So at 13, you got into the IT space and said, hey, I'm going to start doing IT as a business. So kind of take us along that. What did you start doing? And, how did people take you serious at age of 13 doing computer work?
I think they took me serious because a lot of the times I offered to do it for free.
Okay.
I think that was, a good, entry point into that. And then, sometimes the problems that people were having me work on took a lot of time for me to resolve them. And so, sometimes they would, make a dinner for me while I was there. And like, can you imagine having a home cooked meal versus I was eating Kraft dinner or, grilled cheese or something basic that Mr. Noodles or, So if I could have a home cooked meal for fixing someone's computer, that was payment enough for me back then.
Yeah, I bet.
But, I started to get people would talk to other people and, oh no, Darryl fixed my computer. He can help you with yours. And people would give me money for doing it. I wasn't asking for money. They would give me money. Some of them knew my living situation. Some didn't. But then I would get referred to friends of friends of friends. And then the question would be like, well, how much would you charge me to come and do this? Mm-hmm. I kind of stumbled into making a recurring business in that way. Once I started to get it out of the immediate people I knew and was getting referred to friends of family members, or whatever is the case. And so, I mean, I think I was working 2 jobs back then just so that I could pay rent and buy groceries and go to school. I think minimum wage back then was $7 and something an hour. Like it was really, really, really low for, living in Canada. But they would offer me sometimes $10 or $12 an hour or something. So for me, that was like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I was able to make some, extra money doing that and side hustles doing that. And as I got better at my software development skills, I was able to start writing software that I could sell. You'll probably remember this, but the younger generation, not so much. There used to be really popular shareware websites where you could go and you could upload your software and people would get a 30-day evaluation of it that would time out after 30 days. They'd have to buy the software, put a code in, and it would unlock the software.
Sure.
So I had written 4 different software packages that did different things. One of them was a security application that locked Windows 95. Again, I'm dating myself here, but if you think back to Windows 95, you could make it put a password screen up, but all you had to do to get around that password screen was press escape, right? And then you're right into the Windows profile. So I wrote software that loaded with Windows that locked it when it was booted up, and you had to have a username and password or this screen wouldn't go away and you couldn't get into Windows.
Very cool.
I started writing software like that and selling it and, making money. And I started that was my first exposure to US currency as well, because the currency came in US, and oh my God, I love converting US currency to Canadian because it's so much more. So every time I would make a sale on the software, I was like, yes, because it's money and it's more money because they convert it to Canadian. So, that was kind of fun. But I did a lot of that stuff and then side programming jobs for people that would need a printer auto mapped when the computer loaded and stuff like that. So I kind of just progressed out of that into my post-secondary education. I was able to finance a lot of my post-secondary education through the software sales that I had made.
No doubt.
Services that I was doing.
Wow.
So I was able to graduate without debt. And I think that's what gave me the confidence to start doing this as a full-time business. And I think back then I started looking at ways to make recurring revenue. So I was doing MSP before it was even called MSP. I would go on site, sit at customers' computers, do updates, renew their antivirus, do the scans. I'd sit every computer one by one. I would sit there because there was no way to automate it back then. Mm-hmm. We didn't have the tools that we have now. We didn't have so I could only ever service a small handful of people versus now we can do hundreds, thousands
right.
at a time because of how far technology has come in our tools and so forth. But web hosting was another one, making websites, anything that was recurring. And then in early 2000, I got into VoIP. Okay. Back before VoIP was even popular and being used everywhere, I built our own VoIP platform. Built the portals, the customer portal, reseller portal, the 911 system, the fax. I coded all of it. And it was a way to make money recurring. And then as I was doing that, I was also growing out the IT portion of the company to, do all of this IT repair service, be the IT department for companies before it was even called MSP. Mm-hmm. And then gradually, as that grew and developed, I started to pivot the company into what we are doing now, which is cybersecurity and cloud. But that's kind of the journey to get there.
Well, I'm thoroughly impressed. Obviously, creating the code and the application, the programs, and funding your college, and to come out of that basically debt free. That's one heck of a story too, right? I mean, a lot can't say that. Most can't say that. I don't know very few that can. And that's a side of you that I don't know that I knew necessarily, right? Let alone the specifics of that. So that's very interesting to me to learn about you. And then to move on, you mentioned about the VoIP thing and and then continually progressing. What challenges did you, what aspects of that was challenging when you were coding? And I'm assuming there was long hours involved and a lot of trial and error on this and testing. What was your you said the Windows 95 piece, but what was the largest coding project that you took on for yourself that you turned into a revenue?
Absolutely, the VoIP platform, without a doubt. No comparison. The other softwares that I wrote before were just single applications that were sold. Mm-hmm. The VoIP system was a platform.
Okay.
So there was the servers, there was the code that runs on the servers, there was the customer portal that ran on top of that, and then the reseller portal that ran on top of that. There was integration with other vendors through their APIs to do things like 911 provisioning and VoIP DID telephone number ordering and directing those. And then the call flow applications too that make a phone system actually work. There was all of that. I put years of development, ongoing years into that. Yeah.
Did you ever, I guess in those years, did you ever think of it, this isn't going to be worth it? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Or was this one of those things that you're passionate about and it's like, this is going to be success regardless?
No, it was a necessity.
Necessity.
It was a way that I knew I was good at it. I knew I could make money doing it. And, back then I was still in the survival mentality of, as long as I have enough coming in to pay the rent, because I was still renting at that time, pay the rent and have food to eat in a car to get me back and forth from work. And that car, oh my God, was in the repair shop more than it was on the road, but it was what I could afford back then. That was it. It was survival. So, I never went to school for business. I went to school for computers and software development. I never took a day of finance. I never took a day of business. I never took a day of building a customer journey and managing employees, like nothing. I have no experience in any of that. So building the VoIP thing was just, I didn't do it with a business mindset. I did it with a survival mindset that this is what was going to keep us aloft and, keep us contributing to our economy, delivering value to our clients. I knew people needed it and wanted it. And it was it. But I never looked at it as a way to I wasn't even thinking monetize this and sell this portion of the business later, or go through some type of merger and acquisition. I didn't even know what that was. So it was just, honestly, it was just a way to survive and have a recurring income that let me serve the same people all the time and be reliable and show up and be accountable to them, because that's always something that's been really important to me. When I give someone my word, I do it. I don't like when people promise me something and don't deliver. I had a whole lifetime of people doing that. So I don't like to do that to people. And it was a way to let me just continue to work with the same people over and over and over again.
Very cool. So how long did you said it took years to develop, then you started rolling this thing out. And how long of a run did you have on that platform?
Well, we still have active clients on our VoIP solution
to this day.
I'm just not the one who's managing it anymore. I've been able to break that part of the business away from being attached just to me, because I wrote all the code. Because this goes back to not having a proper business acumen and thinking ahead back then. I didn't know better. I thought that, the secret sauce was that I'm the one who has all the intellectual property in my head and I know it, it's mine. And it was, and nobody could touch it and nobody could duplicate it. And nobody could replicate it. It was very unique in that way. And I could make it do anything anybody asked for. Like, I could literally make that system do anything. And I did make it do so many custom things for people. But I started to realize that I became the bottleneck of that as I was trying to, pivot our company more into be a professional managed IT services company that's forward looking. And then especially when we started to get into cybersecurity and cloud, there was just there was no way for me to be the CEO of the company, oversee our sales, our marketing, our hiring of talent, and be the guy that's at the keyboard typing code.
Mm-hmm.
And so it probably was, I want to say 2017 or 2018 that I started to have that reckoning that I need to stop doing that, and I need to, get people in here that can do that stuff. So I wish I would have done that sooner, but it's like anything, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't have anybody to coach me. I didn't have parents with business experience or friends. I didn't have anybody. I literally had to figure all of this out. And my God, I made so many mistakes along the way. I don't regret them. It made me who I am now. But I'm like, if my children were to go into business, I could save them so much hardship and so much headache.
Shortcut them, right? Like, just based off your experiences and knowing you had these challenges, and you say that, make mistakes, okay, lessons learned, right? Move on, learn and grow, be better. And you've done that. And so you said that this moment that you realized that you were the bottleneck. Was that a struggle for you, or was it difficult to recognize that and accept that and be willing to remove you as being the bottleneck? Or, because some of us, such as myself, can be a control freak, and, think that no one can do it better than me. So we got to, once again, we hold ourselves back. How difficult was it to remove yourself as that bottleneck?
It was difficult, and it wasn't difficult, but it was definitely more difficult than it was not difficult, if that makes sense. It was difficult in the sense that I was so used to all of our clients and everybody just, Darryl's the expert. When something's broken, I'll come to him. And whenever I need something, Darryl will come and fix it. It's a Darryl. Mm-hmm. And Darryl can only be in so many places at any one time. And where I wasn't many of the times was where I needed to be. At 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And that's at home with my kids, helping getting them bath, getting them into bed, and doing all that stuff, especially on the weekends when they're not at school, or, being able to go and do stuff with them. So it definitely helped me get out of that, because I realized that I can't do that for everybody all the time and be there. And that I need a team of people around me that can support people and deliver the services and help them when they need help. But it can't always be me. So it was hard in that sense. And it took me a longer time to realize that than, myself now, I would have done that 10 years sooner. Oh, but, so it was easy in the sense that I could understand that removing myself as the bottleneck would allow our company to grow, and it did. And it would allow us to provide better service to our clients, and it did. And it would allow us to service a lot more clients, and it did. And so I just wish I would have known that sooner and done it sooner and got out of my own way sooner for that. But I didn't.
So what was the first hire for you?
The first hire for me was a technician.
Okay.
Somebody to help our clients fix things. Mm-hmm. That was the first and most important, because I was the technician. And people would call up, and it would be me that has to call them. So you can understand why I could never get away. I could never go on vacation. I could never do anything because it was always my phone that was ringing. So the first hire was hiring a technician to do a lot of the work that I was doing by myself. And then it was hiring another technician it was to get myself out of the tech role, mm-hmm. so that I could start focusing on being a CEO and building our cybersecurity division, getting a proper training tool, vendors, resources, knowledge, skill set built up. There was no way I could have taken that on if I was taking the phone calls. The other part that was hard about it is some clients we have had them for a long, long time. Like, I'm talking over 20 years. Some of our clients have been with us. And for those old guys that they're still, they were still used to, and some of them, maybe only like one or two, but the rest of them have gravitated towards has got a team, and I'll use them. But some of the really, really old clients that have been forever, that were so used to pick up the phone and call Darryl, anytime they have an issue that they feel is like a really urgent or important issue, they'll still email me. And then, that becomes the bottleneck because I'm attending a cybersecurity conference, or I'm on stage doing a presentation, or I'm doing something like this, or, I'm doing a cybersecurity consultation for somebody. And so I become the bottleneck for that. Instead of them leveraging our team, they still come direct to me. Fortunately, it's only like 1 or 2 people that still do that. But that bottleneck issue, it still exists, and it was really, really hard to get out of that.
Yeah, I imagine. And I can relate in that aspect. Obviously, you know my business pretty well and are intimate with it as one of my advisory board members, and we're a member of a peer group together. And so we know that we share some similar struggles at different times. But yes, that's something that I know our client base at times, even when it was a higher, we'd get that call. We don't like them. What do you mean you don't like them? Well, it's not you. Really, at the end of the day, it was because it wasn't me.
Yes.
There was nothing wrong with that individual. They were very skilled and talented and years of experience, but because it wasn't me. And then I didn't physically tell them. And I remember this, well, we're spoiled because we have you.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, in that case, you can have me, but then I can't grow. I can't do those other ththings. I can't be that CEO at that point, right? I'm the technician, and that isn't moving the business forward. So
yeah, and it's really easy. Our industry has such a high burnout rate of people just because of, all we deal with is people's complaints and issues and stuff not working. Like that's what our industry is. And rarely to ever does a client pick up the phone and say, you know what, we've had the last 2 months with no issues. You guys are just banging this out of the park. Awesome. It never happens, right? And so all you ever get used to is your phone ringing. Oh, this is not working. Oh, this is not working. Oh, this needs an update. Oh, this needs, it's always something and we need it now. And there's a high burnout rate that comes from that. And especially if you're the one doing everything by yourself and you're not able to, grow a team of people around you to help offset some of that. I mean, it's like any business, I'm sure, where you're the owner and you're wondering sometimes, like, why do I even bother doing this? Like, the stress is just not worth it. Why do I even bother doing it? But that's why, it's important to have a good team around you, but it's also good. It's also important to have good clients that value what you do, that treat your team with respect, and that, your team respects them. And it's that win-win where you're really working together. We have a lot of really great clients that fit that mold. And so things are definitely a lot easier now than they were years ago in that regard.
Wonderful. Now, I know, coulda, woulda, shoulda, you look back and going, I was the bottleneck. And, have you ever sat around and I guess thought a little bit, reflected, going, geez, where would my business be today if I would have made that move sooner? Because I've watched you just blow up over the past couple of years that I've known you. And, I just couldn't imagine tacking on another, even just a couple, if not 5, 10 years onto that and where you'd be today.
I try not to go down that road very often because, I look at the growth of our company in terms of our revenue, our employee base, our maturity as an organization, the departments that we built out, and it's always growing and doubling and getting bigger. And the reason why it's doing that is because I'm being the CEO of the company now, and I'm not doing the tech support, and I'm not doing the marketing. I'm not pushing the buttons. I'm steering the ship, but I'm not pushing the buttons. It took me a long time to learn that skill, if you will, call it that, or that ability to delegate, and to not just delegate, but to delegate effectively, and to train people on the things that they don't know so that you're not doing it. It took me a long time. My God, Mark, if I would have started this path 10 years ago, we would be probably 5 times the size, if not bigger, than we are right now. Easily.
If not retired.
If not retired.
Let's be real, right?
That'd be nice.
Yeah, right.
We certainly, unequivocally, without a doubt, I can say 100%, we would be much farther along than we are right now.
Well, but you've learned a lot. You've learned so much along the way, and obviously you're applying those things, and I hear them and see them quite frequently. And obviously, you're an inspiration to not only myself but others that see that as well. And yeah, I tell you, as an entrepreneur, and obviously at a young age entrepreneur, and you just obviously that was a mode of survival. It isn't as much survival today, but it's obviously you are on track to reach your goals, right? As you continue to grow and achieve, and you just keep on moving that marker, right? A little bit further down the road. And I can't wait to watch and see what happens with you in the next 5-10 years. I know that it will only be even more amazing. So at some point you kind of turned into more, obviously we know how the industries went, but cybersecurity, and you really just took cybersecurity on both hands, grabbed a hold of it and said, this is what I'm doing. And a sense of become, like I said, not only an advocate, but a master in cybersecurity and protecting your clients. And you're out there, the one that's yelling from the rooftops. Talk to me a little bit about that.
As I reflect on that internally and look back on that, this 100% comes from the way that I grew up. I hate when I see people getting taken advantage of. I hate it. I despise it. I really, really, really despise watching good, hardworking people that have put generations or sometimes their whole adult life into building a business. Because I know what that takes. I know what that struggle is. I've done it. I've been there. I know how hard that is. I didn't have any business partners. I didn't have any family giving me money. I didn't have any bank funding, like nothing. I know how hard it is to build a business from nothing and to give so much of your life to it. And so when I started to see this trend taking place of really cybercrime really, really taking off and really growing, and ransomware and all of this malware and email phishing schemes and people losing everything that they've put 20, 30, 40, 50 years into building, it really bothered me. It bothered me a lot. And I've been there in people's shoes over my time growing up, not just as a kid, but as even being in business with customers and vendors and people that I've worked with over. There's always somebody out there looking to take advantage of you, always. And I always despise that personality trait that some people have. And I wanted to be the voice and advocate for SMBs because there's a lot that takes place in enterprise. Enterprise has big money. They've got deep pockets. They've got big IT teams. They've got everything that small businesses don't have and can't afford to have. And so I realized that this was going to be the future of IT, and that I wanted to be in a position to leverage my 25 plus years of experience working with IT. I've witnessed every single major event that's taken place in IT because it's all happened within my generation. So I have a unique perspective in watching that. And so as I started to see these cybersecurity events taking place and the threat actors getting better at what they were doing, I knew that we were poised to be the voice and the solution for SMBs at a price point that they could afford. And so that's the point of time where I really started to get out of the in the business part, writing code and answering tech support. And I said, if our company is going to be here long term and we're going to really protect our clients the way I want to protect our clients and the way that I know we need to, I need to start getting out and going, attending these major industry events that take place, the training that takes place, meeting other like-minded business owners that are in the same space. And I've made a ton of really good friendships with a lot of IT people. You're one of them. A lot. I have a lot of friends in this business, in the cybersecurity space. Some of them even have offices 5 minutes away from where our office is, and we're friendly. and we collaborate.
That's
and I
great.
help them and they help us. But I knew that this part of our business would need to grow and would need to thrive, and that it would be long-term viable, and it was what our clients needed. So I started to really get down to business on that part. We linked up with some of the best vendors in the industry, some of the best processes in the industry. And as a result, our service delivery changed. Our pricing model had to change because it's running a security department is not cheap. The overhead that goes into that is just, it's insane. And so to get the company built in that way and start to go down that path was something that I knew that we needed to do if we were going to be around for much longer. The problem that I faced once I had done all of this investment, because I did it early, I knew that I could see this coming and I could see where it was going. And I knew that this was going to be something that everybody was going to be asking for, but I did it early. I saw what was coming. So we were early to market with our solution. And so when I was talking to people, and I still talk to small business owners that have this, I want to call it trash because they believe things that are going to put them in jeopardy. But, in the early days when I was talking to people about, we need to upgrade your service, we need to protect you against cybersecurity, we need to do these things, we need to put these controls into place. A lot of people were like, that's too expensive. That's going to cost us too much money. And so it was always a conversation of, I understand that this looks like it's a cost to you, but one time something's going to happen and it's going to surpass your entire year's IT budget, if not ruin your reputation or put you out of business. So it was hard when I was early to market to get people to understand that. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, whatever you want to call it, I was right about where this industry was going, and ransomware and phishing is something that started happening to everybody and their friend. It's on the news every single day. And so it's a lot easier to have those conversations with people now, certainly, than it was. But there's still people out there that are like, yeah, we're too small. We don't have anything of value. I mean, I've done a whole LinkedIn series on just, dispelling some of these myths that business owners still believe. But it's definitely getting easier to talk to people about. They understand the importance of it. I feel like because we were early to market on it has given us significant insight and allowed us to really hone and refine. And, we've changed our tool set 7-8 times, over the course of just the last 4 years. So we're constantly evaluating it and we're constantly changing it. But because we got in on it early and we've been watching the trends and it is our core focus, we're able to be really, really good at it and focused at it. And protecting people was the initial mission of going into this and why we do it. And when we get lined up with people who are taking our advice, following our recommendations, and allowing us to do IT the way that we know it needs to be done, we're able to deliver that. And that's why that was the goal of doing it to begin with. So
I appreciate your passion for that and being that, I guess, leading that charge and being the one who was early to market. We know that media, obviously, it doesn't take much. Quick search any kind of news channel, you can see that something's being compromised somewhere, right? Some type of ransomware or some type of attack. You see the MGM was a big one that we saw not too long ago. You see medical facilities being compromised.
That was happening.
Yeah, there you go.
I was actually there while they were having a cybersecurity incident, attending a cybersecurity conference. Like, what are the chances?
Yeah, right. So you talked about getting out and going to industry events and meeting others. Tell me how much of that getting out there, getting that knowledge share, right? Learning from others, learning from those vendors, those industry, specialized individuals, has played a part in accelerating your business
it would not be what it is had I not done that and continue to do that.
So there's a great value in that. And I know it seems sometimes hard to take that time to do it because you're taking it away from being at the business and fielding those calls and those things to go learn and grow, to bring it back, to apply it to your organization, to apply it to your clients. And, so between that and then the other twist of that is I know it's just you that, we participate in peer groups, whether we have facilitators, whether we have business coaches, whether we have how much of coaching and learning from those type of individuals has influenced your business.
Bar none. Going back to what would I have done 10 years ago to make things different, it would have been taking that journey back then, because that was instrumental into getting out of my own head and my own way. And that's why I was saying to you earlier in the podcast here that, my God, if my kids would ever go into business, I could save them so much heartache, so much headaches, help them avoid so many pitfalls, right? I went down so many rabbit holes and made so many mistakes that I would have never made had I had the right coaches around me at any given time in my journey. And I've had different coaches come in and leave over different periods of time in my life and in our business growth, because they're not, the people that you start working with in the early days are not necessarily the people you could, should, or would be with, 3 years down the road, because you improve, your business changes, your needs change. Without a doubt, coaching is a core of everything that I do. I don't take our company in any direction ever without getting mentoring from coaching from people that have been there and done it in larger organizations of the same size, or who just have a track record of doing that thing successfully. So I invest a ton in that myself in terms of personal development. And I invest in that in terms of our corporate development. And I invest in the events that we go to and the industry events that we attend, not just the learning sessions, but the ones where we participate. Like even when we're on panels, like I've done panel discussions with you, all of those things are what allow us to stay at the forefront of this industry in this space. It's the right coaching, it's the right people, it's the right leaders, and it's the right events, and attending them regularly. This is not an evergreen area of our business. Absolutely. Cybersecurity changes by the day. And the things that we do right now are likely not going to be the things that we're doing 6 months from now, because it changes so fast.
Yes.
And if we're not making that investment in airplanes and hotels and events and food and logistics and travel and all of that to stay there at the forefront of this, like that, your knowledge is out of date. And so that's why we do it.
No, and thank you for expressing that and sharing that. I can tell you that, one of the things with this podcast, these episodes is I'm all about transparency, right? And being authentic. And I'm one to admit things that maybe I wouldn't admit any other day, just random talk, but, talking to you about it and the listeners to hear this is I have struggled in my business with feeling with guilt to go to industry events because I felt guilty of the time I was taking away from the clients, maybe not meeting their needs during that time, or the fear of something happening while I was gone, right? That, I know some of our other peers are pretty, I guess even with emails, they're pretty, people are aware of what's going on. But for us, I always felt like I couldn't tell anybody I was going to these things because if I did, they're gonna say, well, must be nice, or why aren't you here doing these other things? And instead you're off doing, they goofing off, but it's really not, right? Obviously, yes, there might be some enjoyment that comes along with it, such as, having discussions, afterwards with individuals such as yourself. But, it's really investing. I'm investing to bring a better service to their organizations.
Yep.
But, even to this day, I do struggle. I struggle with that. Even if it's in not just that, but even if it's personal, to go see my own mother, I feel guilty.
I always get somewhat irritated when I hear people make comments like that. I've even I'll even be with a client, and we'll be talking about their upcoming vacation plan or whatever. And they'll have an employee or a friend or a vendor or somebody in the room at the same time. And the moment that the CEO says, "Oh yeah, we're going to take a holiday. We're going to XYZ place," that comment always comes out. "Oh, it must be nice. It must be nice to be able to do that." But what they're not seeing is all of those 18-hour days and those days where you're like, "Why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. I should just go get a job. I should just." They don't see all of that. They just see like the reward at the end of the tunnel, if you even want to call it a reward, because for a lot of business owners, when they're away on vacation, their phone is right there with them. Like they're on vacation, but they're not. Versus if you take a job somewhere and you go on vacation, you can just turn your phone off and you can, go home at 5 o'clock at the end of the day. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into running a business, and stress, and quite frankly, risk. There's so much risk that you have to take as a business owner if you're going to move your business in any direction. And for you, it could even be that example you just gave of, you're taking that risk of stepping away from your business, but it's the right thing to do because you're going to be at an event with the people and skill sets and tools that you need to bring back home to deliver to your clients to ensure that they're going to stay in business. So there's always a ton of risk that owners take on that they don't vocalize. They don't say it. They don't communicate it. I know I don't. I know you don't. And I know a lot of my customers that are CEOs that I'm friends with, they also don't. Unless they're talking with another CEO, they don't talk about it because it's like, you get that must be nice, must be, you've got a nice car, you're going on a vacation or whatever is the case. It must be nice, as if you just woke up one morning and it was all there waiting for you. And nothing could be farther from the truth.
Yeah, 100%.
People will have that perception, right? No matter what. Even, I've even had people say it to me when I went on the trip to Jamaica. I said, I'm going to be away for I think it was 4 days or 5 days. We're going on a family vacation, and people said to me, "Oh, must be nice." It was literally the first vacation we've ever taken in our lives. I was 42 or something like that, 40 at the time. Must be nice.
Yeah,
but it took 40 years of blood, sweat, tears, aggravation, going without, but people don't see it. So when I hear that comment made to another CEO or even to myself, it always, like, I don't make a point to bring it up, but it always bothers me because it's like, you don't know what somebody's going through or what they've done.
What we've endured to get there, right? I mean, and even I shared with you in the green room prior to this was, next week traveling to go see my mother, and and I will be working while I'm there. I can't completely disconnect, but even with my mother, she's just happy that, even sitting in her living room and I have my laptop and I'm on a Teams call, she's just happy to have me there. Right. But, that's not necessarily how I want to remember my time with my mother. Right. Life is short. We're never guaranteed a tomorrow. And, I'm going to visit my mother. I want to be able to spend that quality time with her and have those memories. And, I look to the day that I can maybe disconnect completely. Like I said, it's gotten better. It's gotten better over the 13 years, where we are today. But, don't, especially if the things that do happen when you're away, or those chances are going to mean nothing. In the grand scheme of life, they mean nothing.
Yep. It can wait till you get back.
It can wait. It might be an inconvenience to someone, but it can wait. There's nothing we're doing. No lives are on the line.
Yeah, and I want to share a story with you because you just made me think about that when you talked about being there with your mom, and you're there but you're not there, right? Half of you is there with the computer, and the other half, hopefully, maybe depending on your day, is there with her. I have a next door neighbor that we've been really, really good friends with ever since we bought our house many moons ago. That we've just been really, really good friends with them. These people have worked there. They also they had a business themselves that they owned.
Okay.
And like every business owner, put their blood, sweat, and tears into it and spent their entire life doing that. They owned a restaurant, and they never went on vacation. They never did anything other than be there for the business, because their plan was that, we're going to work now. We're going to work like slaves now. We're going to bank every bit of money, and then we're going to sell this puppy. And when we sell it, we're done. We're retired. That's it. We're not going to worry. We're going to have money in the bank, and we're going to live out our glory days, with financial freedom, which sounds like an amazing strategy, an amazing idea. And I get it. Like, yeah, why not? I mean, I feel like I've already been doing that myself. So when I heard him say that to me, I could relate. I'm like, yeah. That makes sense. That'd be a great thing to do. It was about a year and a half ago, they both reached retirement, and they were able to retire, and they didn't have to work anymore. They were starting to do really nice things. They'd go to the cottage. They didn't have to work. They'd sleep in, and they were getting everything planned out. They were going to start traveling and everything. And then his wife got pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
And she made it 8 months on like chemotherapies. And I watched her go from this lady. She could build fences. She could drive boats. She was very active and very mobile. And they never hire a contractor for doing anything. They do work in their garage. They build a mezzanine, like everything they do. And the decline that happened with her over 8 months, the last time that I saw her, she couldn't even lift her. She was slumped down on the table. She couldn't even lift her head up. And so here you have some entrepreneurs that have worked their entire life being there for their business, being there for their clients, never doing anything for themselves, waiting to have their retirement, only to have it. Now he's a widow. He doesn't even want to travel anymore. He doesn't even want to go anywhere. He doesn't want to do it alone. They were going to go on cruises. They were going to go on vacations, traveling parts of the world, all things that they look forward to, that he doesn't even want to do it anymore because he doesn't want to do it solo. Yeah. And it's so sad to see like that took place. And I think there's a reason why I met them. There's a reason why I became friends with them. And there's a reason why I got that exposure to them. Because every time that I think about doing things, like it was family day last weekend and I wanted to go away and do something with the family instead of sit home, it's that plays in my mind, that we're working, we're generating our money to survive and have our livelihoods. And yes, to be financially responsible, we need to think about our future. But I don't think that it makes sense to have all of your money siloed into an account that you're going to use at a future time, because you don't know what the future is going to be like. You get hit by a car tomorrow. So many things could happen that change the direction of your life, your partner's life, your kid's life. Anything could happen. And so I all of this to say, maybe don't take your laptop with you.
No,
you never know.
You don't. And I think, obviously we're getting older. I'll be 50 this April, just a couple months from now. And it's something I start reflecting on life a little differently. You start looking as you start losing your friends, your schoolmates, right? Your relatives, it puts things in a different perspective. And, that same thing, hey, just like he doesn't want to enjoy it. Everything that he worked for was to work for with her, to enjoy those things with her. And now she's gone. So, I have friends or things that might they like to give me a hard time about, oh, it looks like you're always going somewhere or doing something. Well, it might look that way, but it's not necessarily the truth. But I'm also learning to go in, you know what? Okay, I'm going to do this thing. And then once again, we were in the group chat and I was explaining about spring break, right? I'm like, why not? Let's go do it. Let's go help it get warm. And because this time is never going to be there. I know I made that mistake with my own child. I remember 10 years ago or so, we went to an air museum, and I remember telling him at that point that I'm doing what I'm doing so we can do more fun stuff in the future. When was the future? Because I really just missed his childhood completely.
Yep.
It wasn't until he graduated that we actually did something together. We went to Florida. Went to the, Kennedy Space Center. We did all these things just in a short period of time. But that was like the biggest thing we ever did together. And to this day, he still says, hey, we need to do that again sometime, you know? And that was back in 2019 or whatever it was. So, and now we're in 2024. So 5 years ago, he's still saying, hey, we need to get together and do something again like that time, you know, because it was fun. And it was, you know. So, you know, don't let opportunities pass by, you know.
And I think that maybe hindsight's 20/20
Sure.
always, right? But maybe had you gotten away from your business during those times and been able to do that every time, I don't know about you, I'm pretty sure you can relate to this, any business owner can. When you can actually step away from your business and get out of the office and go be with other industry leaders or get out of the country to attend an event or a speaking engagement or whatever it is that you're doing, it changes your energy when you come back.
Oh,
and it
certainly.
Changes your focus. And a lot of the things that you thought were urgent, immediate fires that needed to get put out really aren't. And you put those aside to work on more important things. But when you're sitting there and you're in the day-to-day and all you're doing is just spinning around in that wheel over and over and over again, you don't see it. And so, you know, maybe had you been able to get away and have that time, you would have had those reflection points. It's the same like I would have, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Very true.
So that's why I say, like, if you have the opportunity to go do something, do it.
Do it.
Because you don't know what's going to happen later.
Yeah. And once again, I'm trying to do more and more of that in my own life. And I hope that others will take that in consideration in their own lives. So I'm going to switch things up a little bit here. And I'm going to do that because, you know, this entire time I've been staring at your background behind you or the scenery behind you, and I see pictures of you. And I know that we alluded to this in the very beginning in the intro, talking about in 2020 that you had an Amazon bestseller. I actually have a copy of that here in front of me, right? On Thin Ice. You're a contributing author to this book. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, that was actually a fun experience. I never envisioned myself being an author of anything ever. It's not something that I ever planned on. It's not something that I worked towards. I just happened to be in an industry that has cybersecurity at the forefront. It's in the news everywhere. It's on people's radar. People know what it is, and people talk about it. It's table talk at a dinner table, and for many, many people. And so I had the opportunity to join and get that book created with some of the smartest and brightest in the industry and collaborate on that together. That was a lot of fun. There was people from all over North America and even Australia that we worked with to get that done and put together. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. And all of the authors on the book said, you know, we're going to get this out on Amazon. We're going to sell it. Our goal is to have it become an Amazon bestseller. And whatever money we make from this book, we don't want any of it. We want all of it to go to St. Jude's Children's Hospital to help kids who are going through like life-changing, sometimes terminal diagnosis. And give all the proceeds from the book to that. So that was a lot of fun to do that, not just from the collaboration point of it, but it also took away a lot of you're not commercializing it, so you're not expecting to make any money on it. But you're getting out some really great content that business owners can actually leverage and use. And on the back end of that, we're helping kids with cancer. Like, you couldn't ask for a better setup. So no. I was really happy to partake in that and do that. It was the first one, and it did become Amazon bestseller. We did get it there, and it was an experience. It was something new and something I had never done. And so after I did that book on Thin Ice is when I did the second one, which is solo author book. It's the one you see behind me, Cyber Exploitation.
And I feel a little guilty. I can't say that I even have a copy of that. So we should probably fix that in the very near future. I know this one, you talk about On Thin Ice. You know, I know that I bought at least a dozen, if not maybe 20 copies of this, and I have given those to some of our clients. because this was written for the business owner, right? Business owner minded, and about cyber attacks and their environment. So I have shared that. And I know the fact that I know that the proceeds from that, of me buying those books, it went to good use. That's amazing to hear. And thank you. Thank you for contributing to that, bringing that out, making it a bestseller. And then the biggest part of that is, once again, is sharing the proceeds with people who could benefit from them. And on your book that you wrote personally, what did it take to make you go, hey, I'm going to do this solo book? And how long did it take you to produce that?
So in the book on Thin Ice, there was a lot more areas that I wanted to talk about and focus on, but we had this size of a book to work with, and I would have ended up making it like this. So it was a way to talk about some of the other really important parts of our industry and of our space. As it pertains to small businesses. I wanted it to not be for the enterprise. Okay. And so it was really designed with the small business owner in mind, and it allowed me to cover talking points that weren't covered in on Thin Ice, as well as some of that were, but I just wanted to elaborate more and put more of a Canadian touch on it. A lot of the authors that I worked with were in the United States. You're talking some of the best people in the industry in the US that I collaborated with on that. But as much as Canada and the United States are similar in so many ways, there's a lot of nuanced differences that if you're a Canadian reader reading that, you'll pick up, especially as you're not on my particular part of the book. And so cyber exploitation allowed me to bridge that gap and talk about things that matter to Canadian SMBs, and from a Canadian perspective, from a Canadian business owner who's in the cybersecurity industry. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do the solo author one as well. The same thing, it wasn't designed to be a revenue generator. All the proceeds from that book were also donated to a hospital as well for kids. So I mean, it was all done for bringing value, bringing awareness, and I've given out tons of copies of the book. We've done book signings, and if it helped one person, great. I never did it to generate a revenue. I did it to raise awareness, and if that means that somebody wanted to work with us as a result of that, fantastic. But I didn't have that expectation. As long as they were working with somebody and they're making themselves a harder target, then the book accomplished what I set out to do with it.
Kudos to you. I can tell you that, like this podcast, our mission is one of hope. Help one person every day through the podcast. And to hear you say basically very similar words, right? Help one person, with this book. And in return, you helped many people with the proceeds from the book. So hats off to you. I can definitely appreciate your intention there and in both aspects. So very, very cool. So
and the other collaborators that were on the book on Thin Ice too, all of them, not a single one of them said, we should keep this money for ourselves. Everybody was on board. It wasn't even an argument. Everyone was like, yeah, let's do it. So it wasn't just me, it was everybody.
Fantastic. Well, Darryl, as we bring this home, I kind of have a final question I want to throw out at you just to share with others. So, what bit of advice would you give someone, an individual or people in general, for the reason to continue building their own empire as an entrepreneur and to not give up?
What reason would I give them to continue and not give up?
Because you've been through a lot of struggles in life, right? I mean, you never gave up.
Yeah, there's a lot there. The reason I would, if I had to pick one, because I could talk about this forever, to have the creative freedom to build something your way is something that especially if you're passionate about it and that what you're doing matters and you're doing it with good intention and you're doing it because there's value there to people and it's going to be a win-win, not just you're taking everything and get, like, if it's a true win-win and this is a viable, sustainable business that you're going to do, you're going to go through a ton of hardships to get it to to the spot that you want it to get to. And it never gets easy. Every time you cross one barrier and you move up to the next one, there's all the things up here that you didn't even know were going to be problems yet that are now problems. And it continues and it continues and it continues. Sure. But the reason to stick with it and do it, at least from my vantage point, is that it lets you do it the way that you feel is right. And not every organization that you would join as an employee might share that same culture. They might look at things completely different than you do, or they might want to do it differently, or they might say, I'm okay with cutting corners here. It's all about driving profit to the top line, and let's just get that done because we're going to sell this thing in 2 years to somebody else, and who cares about the customers. And you could end up in an organization like that you have no influence and you have no control over. If you are a leadership mentality and you do want to grow an organization and you do want to shape it doing what you think is right and doing things the right way, you can only do that if you're the owner. And, I would argue, even if you have partners, you need to have really good partners that are aligned with the same mentality that you have. And I only work with businesses, and I can tell you there's a lot of clients that we work with and have worked with where there's partners in the deal, and those partners are not aligned, and there's dysfunction in those organizations in the same way that there would be if you were working at a company and trying to shape the way that the company is growing. So I would say stick with it for that reason. If you want to control the direction and you want to do what you know is right, that's the reason to keep doing it.
Well, some sound advice. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners. I want to thank you for joining us today. I know that you're a busy man with a busy schedule, and I truly, truly appreciate you taking the time for us.
Mark, it was awesome. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. And Darryl, I think I get to see you in just a couple months in person, and I look forward to that. Until then, I'm Marc Thomas, and thank you for joining.